right now. So welcome everybody to Zoom Tuesday at the Capitol. Today is Tuesday, April 13th, and it is week 15 of the legislative process. Can you believe we've been doing this 15 weeks in a row, guys? And now, if you're counting the weeks, technically there's 5 weeks left of the current legislative session. They do need to adjourn on the first Monday following the third Saturday in May, which is May 17th. And they can't take any legislative action on the last day of session. Or maybe that's only sine die. Anyways, I won't go there. Anyways, we got 5 weeks to go. We're sort of in the home stretch at this point with the state budget, and I want to give you guys an update on where our bills are at and where things stand. So the third deadline was last Friday, April 9th. And essentially what that means is that all the individual budget committees had to finish their individual budget bills by last Friday and ship them on to their final stop before they hit the floors. And in the House, that final stop is the Ways and Means Committee. The House has always had a committee called Ways and Means, ways to fund things and the means to make it happen, I guess is what that stands for. They just, in the Senate, they just call it the Finance Committee. So essentially they have the same duty, which is to make sure all the math adds up and make sure the bills are all ready to go before they hit the floor. And so as of last Friday, all those bills had been referred to those two committees, Ways and Means in the House, all the House bills, and then in all the Senate bills to the Senate Finance Committees. And then starting yesterday, Monday, the 12th, the Ways and Means Committee and the Finance Committee started processing those bills. And so the way it'll work then is those bills will go through those finance committees, those final stops, and then get presented on the floors of both the House and the Senate. There are some technicalities and things that'll be going on. Some of them maybe will have to stop in the tax committee because they have some tax implications before they get to the floor. Some of them will be combined into one omnibus bill. I don't mean one total omnibus bill. You might remember that from a couple of years ago, Omnibus Prime, they called that. Some of them will get combined. So there are some technical things that might happen, but essentially the major budget bills will start getting hearings on the floor probably in the next couple of days. There won't be long floor sessions right away because these Finance Committee and the Ways and Means Committee need to meet and get the bills shipped out, and then they'll have quick floor sessions just so they can officially process the paperwork. And then the real floor fights will start, and those will go till late at night, early in the morning. That'll start late this week for sure. Be rolling all the next week. So a couple of the major bills that we're watching and things to consider. Obviously, the biggest bill that has the biggest impact on people with brain injury, their loved ones and professionals is the Health and Human Services budget bills. I think I mentioned this last week, but there currently are 4 of those bills. It's Health and Human Services, and it's the House and the Senate. So you take those two ands and you add it all up, you get a House Health bill, a House Human Services bill, a Senate Health bill, and a Senate Human Services bill. The Finance Committee in the Senate will take the Health bill and the Human Services bill and combine them into one bill. The House will do the same, and you'll end up with 2 bills. And then those bills will hit the floor, and just like all the other budget bills. On the Public Safety and Judiciary bill, which is another one that we're watching for Cassie's Law, the Senate just has one committee called Judiciary and Public Safety, where the House has 2 committees, one called Public Safety, one called Judiciary and Civil Law. And the House will combine those 2 bills into one so that they line up with the Senate bills. And then Transportation has a single bill and Higher Ed has a single bill. And the reason I mentioned those 4 committees is because those are the 4 main bills that we're watching right now. Health and Human Services, for obvious reasons, that's where all the funding is for the waivers. That's where all the funding is for the home and community-based services, PCAs, all the things that we care about in terms of services and supports are funded through that Health and Human Services bill. It's a lot at stake, guys, and a lot going on in that bill. We're also watching very closely to protect the medical assistance spend down change we worked so hard on for so many years. That is scheduled, actually, guys, that's scheduled to take effect July 1st, 2022. So it's still over a year away before that spend down standard gets raised up to the income standard so that people's individual spend downs will go down. So you don't have to pay as big of a spend down, be able to keep more of your own hard-earned money. So we're watching that, and I could go into a lot of details, but I won't. But that's where a lot of the health and human service spending is. The other thing that we're watching is Cassie's Law, and that's is involved in the public safety and judiciary bills. And that's been an up and down struggle over the last couple of weeks. We have not passed it as intended. In other words, to apply to all cases and to be funded. We did not get the money in the House, and the Senate did not give us the money either. We have pieces of it in both bills, which is good. And we just don't know exactly how that's going to turn out. What we're pushing for in the Senate, what we have is a study where there's some funding to study if, in fact, we did neuropsychological evaluations. Could that lead to better outcomes and actual budget savings for the state of Minnesota? And if we can get some factual proof of that, it might make it easier to pass this bill in the future. In the House, our good friend Representative Carlos Mariani, when he saw that the remember I said there's two committees in the House. Carlos is the chair of the Public Safety Committee. Representative Becker Finn is the chair of the Judiciary Committee. When Carlos saw that the other committee, the Judiciary Committee, I'm talking too fast, did not fund it, he went back to his original language and put it in his bill as an unfunded mandate that would require the counties to do it. So in the House, we have sort of the unfunded mandate version of the bill. In the Senate, we have a study version of the bill. And we'll see what happens as we continue through the process. I'll give you a quick update on the process in a second after I go over the bills. So that's, I mean, I think it's good that there's a couple of things still alive. Nothing ever goes the way you want it to go. I don't think it's ever gone the way I wanted it to go. But at the end, if we get something out of this, even if it's not everything we want, I think that would be good progress. And you probably don't need me to tell you guys that the judiciary and the public safety bills are getting a lot more scrutiny after the events of this week with another shooting in Brooklyn Center or Brooklyn Park, or was it Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park? And the the trial that's going on right now and the attention to police reforms and the fight between the House and the Senate and the Republicans and the Democrats over what should be done. Our little Cassie's Law, well, it's not little to the people involved, but it's little in terms of the big picture, is caught up in that bill. So there's a lot of big politics. What I'm trying to say is there's a lot of external politics swirling around that whole bill. And so we're trying to get our thing pushed through that process. If that makes any sense, maybe I'm going too deep, but that's what's going on with that one. In the transportation bill, there is a small change to the driver's license reinstatement program that would allow people to pay their fees in 2 installments. And the reason that's important to the brain injury is because that's the funds that go to the Department of Health for the Traumatic Brain Injury Spinal Cord Registry, and ultimately a contract that we have with the Department of Health to provide resource facilitation. That's how that's funded. And so we're watching that just to make sure that we don't see any negative impact to the funding on that. And so far, it all looks fine. It gets a little complicated. It allows people to make their reinstatement payments in two installments. We worked a number of years ago to change the law so that the full $50 that goes to the health department comes out of the first installment. And that language looks like it's staying the same, even though they're removing the requirement that you have to be low income to qualify for payments. But anyways, state says it's going to save money, so they decided to do it. And of course, on the higher ed bill, we have the issue of the Traumatic Brain Injury Spinal Cord Injury Research Fund. And that, don't confuse that with the registry. The registry is in the Department of Health, and that pays for the tracking prevalence. That's my epidemiological word, right? Brooklyn prevalence is what's that pays for, as well as the prevalence studies, as well as our resource facilitation program. Whereas the research fund actually pays for the scientific and medical, pays for some scientific and medical research that's occurring. So in the higher education bill, you might remember there was a little controversy early in session when the governor proposed eliminating that funding. The governor since removed his recommendation to eliminate it. So it's left alone. The Senate actually gives it $2 million extra bucks for one year out of the surplus this coming year, fiscal year. It starts July 1st. The House has the funding and left the funding alone. So we'll continue to watch that. It looks like that's okay. So So at any rate, we're watching both those traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injury funds, the research fund, as well as the prevalence and the Department of Health money, and also the Judiciary and Public Safety bill for the work we're doing on Cassie's law, and then the Health and Human Services bill. So anyways, that's a lot of committees to watch. My head spins a little bit trying to figure out which one to watch and which ones are going where. And if you look at the schedule, you can follow along, guys. If you want to watch any of those bills, watch the House Ways and Means Committee. You can see what bills they're hearing. Watch the Senate Finance Committee. You can see what bills they're hearing. And then buckle up, enjoy the ride on the long House floor fights, because there's all kinds of amendments and all kinds of ideas and things that are being tossed around and discussed. Just a quick update, because I've been going on a little bit here. But the next step in the process then, of course, is the floor fights. Once these bills pass the floors, what will happen is the Senate will pass its bill and send it over to the House. The House will pass their bill and send it over to the Senate. The Senate typically looks at the House bills and says, nah, we want our bill. The Senate looks at the House bills and says, nah, we want our bill. And what will happen is then they'll appoint conference committees, because typically these bills are very different. And in Minnesota has split government. You have the Republicans running the Senate and the Democrats running the House. So the likelihood that the Democrats will accept the Republicans bill or the Republicans will accept the Democrats bill is pretty unlikely. So these bills will probably, in all likelihood, end up in conference committees where they'll iron out the differences, because then they go back. Once they figure out, they take the two bills, they go back and forth until they come up with one bill. They send those bills back. Though they have to pass the floors again. They're not amendable at that point. It's a straight up or down vote, and then they got to get sent to the governor. So a lot of times the governor will weigh in the conference committee process too, because you not only need the other body to approve it, you need both bodies to approve it. You also need the governor to sign it. So that's fun for a couple of weeks later as the session gets closer. So we basically got 5 weeks to do a lot of work, and that's where things are at. So if you like watching long floor debates, this is your time of year. If you like watching conference committees, stay tuned. That's coming up soon. So with that, that's our update for what's going on. And we'll be back again next week with another update. So I'm going to pause and stop there.